So if you're new to the channel, if you've been here before, how about you press the subscribe button if you're not already subscribed? And don't forget to hit the bell, because YouTube doesn't like YouTubers anymore for some reason. Yeah, thank you. Hit that button. An ancient city was discovered by one Saint Coinage, a man who gave up all his prestige to find evidence of a mythical city in the ground. Finally, finding evidence, Coinage gave inspiration to many a scholar after his death, continuing the exploration of this ancient empire for many years. And though he was ridiculed at first, Coinage by himself discovered the lost Allagan Empire that took over almost all of Eorzea during their reign. Through the findings of many intellectuals and historians, we now know most of the history for the Allagan Empire, so let us take the opportunity to go back and rediscover the Third Astral Era. After the communities of mankind emerged from the Calamity of Fire, religion, the centerpiece of society, started to lose its influence. Many had taken the notion that perhaps the gods did not wish to be overly worshipped and using their name for everything they did. This includes war, slavery, and other atrocities the old society had done. Instead, mankind turned down the religion of the gods in favor of self-development. The 12 gods did not disappear, but they were not the center of the new society that would take Eorzea by storm. Magic and science started blending together, inventiveness became the most important trait in a person, and the age of technology finally began in the Golden Age. But with so many clever minds, how can such a society come together in one place? Through a powerful leader, that is, Xande, the first emperor of the Allagan Empire. Also, I googled his name, and I'm not sure if Xande is short for Xander, which is short for Alexander, or it's supposed to be Xande, or I'm not really too sure, but maybe it's Xande, which is Brazilian. Not too sure, but it's up to you guys to decide. Xande was said to be a genius of his own right. Strategically, he knew how to take hold of the people's interest and used it to support his own reign. Politically, he was unmovable. When he brought people together under one flag and one nation, he supported the people's inventiveness and individuality so that the nation he wished to create would become a beacon for all to see. His tactics for bringing people together wasn't always peaceful. There were those opposing this rising nation, wanting their own individual city-states outside of Xande's vision. Yeah, he wouldn't let that happen though, so. Xande crushed his enemies with relative ease, with the inventive power his nation discovered in a technique that was lost to Eorzea hundreds of years later. Xande had Aetherochemistry at his beck and call. The brilliant minds of his nation had found the means of combining science and magic together, machines that ran off of ether, a power source they had abundant of, and so made use of this through work-related machina and devastating weapons. Xande made short work of his enemies and quickly pulled them into his empire. Though war never really ceases, there are some cases when a conqueror brings even his enemies together under one nation and would bring peace throughout the land by giving his people a safe and secured future. Hard to believe, right? Conquerors will always have a sort of rebellion, but there were some who were uncontested in their rule. That power can translate to peace if the ruler is fair to their people, and from what we see, Xande was indeed fair to even the conquered. Peace reigned in Xande's rule, but as is everything living, nothing lasts forever. Xande knew his time would come, and so he specifically bred his children to take over and go forward in keeping the Allagan Empire as a dominant force. Though in the case of Xande after his reign, there was no enemy left to fight, so what was left for the Allagan Empire? only development in the Golden Age. Technology boomed to the point where no one had to worry about anything anymore when it came to everyday living. You could think of every futuristic anime you've ever seen, or maybe something like WALL-E. The completion of Syracuse Tower, or the Crystal Tower as it will be known in the future, cemented the rise in technology by being a catalyst for everlasting power and a base for new inventions. Finally, peace and everlasting comfort thanks to the ingenuity of the Allagans. All was good and comfortable. Except one person didn't agree to that, and that was Amon, a man who only saw stagnation for the Allagans if things kept up. It could be said that it was thanks to Amon that the fall of the Allagans came to be. And yet, his intentions were all for saving the Allagan nation. Amon had seen how lazy and dependent the Allagans became with their newfound technology. Basically, the machines did everything that no one else wanted to do themselves. So Amon came up with a plan to find a way to save the nation before it cripples itself, no matter the means he must take to get there. He devised a way for one to not only be revived from the dead, but also making them immortal. The end goal was the recovery of the Allagan Empire, but the process would land on the side of taboo. Messing with immortality and resurrection was not something any old person could do. Amon, however, wasn't just any old person. Not only did he succeed in reviving the dead, but he also created 3 immortals that would follow the Emperor to the end of time. Eorzea was once a colleague and rival of Amon, an archmage within the imperial court. Amon tricked Celia into participating in his experiment with immortality. Not only did he succeed in taking out an adversary, but he also gave her the very thing she hated as a replacement for her head. A tragic fate, and an asshole move on Amon's part. General Phlegethon was once a leader of a rebellion during the declining years in the Empire. He was known as a hero to the common people, but a murderer to the Imperials. He was captured and then turned into one of Xande's most loyal, albeit heavily brainwashed, generals in his army. DIABOLOS, whose name I'm pretty sure I just butchered, was one of the few volunteers for the immortality experiment. He was already a loyal commander of the Imperial Honor Guard, so he didn't need convincing if it could help the Empire rise back to glory. After tricking more colleagues and test subjects, some who did not survive the experiment, Amon finally experimented with his own body, and also became an immortal, and with everything in check, he went on to revive Xande, the first emperor, and brought a new age of glory to the Empire. Xande had done what Amon hoped for, bringing the Allagan Empire back to its former glory. They cut the weakness out of the Empire by assassinating the current emperor and encouraging the brilliant minds of the time back into their inventive strides. Xande had a goal. He sought war and looked due south to Meracydia. There, he took his forces to a surprise attack, which took the Meracydians off guard. At first, the Allagans were looking good on the offensive, but soon the Dragonkind joined the battle and pushed the Allagans back. This didn't stop the minds of Allagan from inventing new weapons that would push the dragons back and eventually slaying the great worm Bahamut. After defeating the dragons, the Allagan forces pushed the Meracydians to their breaking point. Looking to the help of a mysterious third party, the Meracydians summoned their 3 gods to the fray. The warring triads, Sephiroth the Fiend, Sophia the Goddess, and Zervan the Demon. With the Icons 3, they pushed the Allagans back and for a while were on the winning side of the war. Xande was furious and decided to push his scientific minds to a solution by killing one of them each day they didn't have a solution. The minds of Allag racked their brains over this conundrum until they looked to the enemy for an answer. Using a special kind of spell weaving, they developed the means to imprison the warring triad without defeating them, and again the Allagans advanced. Xande took pleasure in the slaughter of the Meracydians, having obtained greater arcane knowledge from them and having the ability to capture and tame both dragon and icon alike. Even the reborn Bahamut, for which was summoned by a grieving and vengeful Tiamat, could finally be captured after pushing the Allagan forces back for a bit.
It was in the twilight of the 3rd astral era. The southern land of Meracydia suffered invasion at the hands of the Alagan Empire. With no atrocity too depraved for their purpose, the forces of Allag were unstoppable in their advance. Desperate for salvation, the dragons prayed to one of their first brood, to their ancestor Bahamut. infused by the power of their fervent supplications, Bahamut arose from the abyss of death and took wing as the Meracydians' new-born god. Yet this great miracle would only serve to further the maniacal designs of the dragon's imperial conquerors. The cruel fetters which bind my lord stand testament to the Allagans' boundless greed and hubris.
Bahamut was captured after some time, and so was Tiamat as a show of power. However, Xande was not done. The minds of Allag had found a way to commune with the Void and its creatures, helping Xande to come in contact with the self-appointed ruler of the Void, the Cloud of Darkness. Through this pact, Xande and his bloodkin would have total control of the Voidsons that were able to cross into his realm via possession of vessels and dead bodies, thus the contract that would rip open a tear into the Void, springing forth its monstrous inhabitants. That's probably the reason why we have Voidsons today, because somebody forgot to close the freaking hole back up. Xande had brought Meracydia low, and now his empire was at its largest. However, he was unsatisfied with its end. And so, Xande would prove his lost sanity by these given orders. 1. Launch the captured dragon icon into space and gather energy from the sun. 2. Use that power upon Highland's surface, which would rip open a portal to the Void, thus releasing the Cloud of Darkness herself, bringing the world to a state of near death, just as he wanted it to be. 3. Have the world be in constant chaos so that Xande can live off that high. It's a weird plan. Xande wished for blood and violence so much he wanted to bring the one being to the realm that could nearly annihilate all living things. Yet his subjects didn't want that, so a resistance came to be. Xande, however, already launched his plans, and a gate was set to appear. Except Xande and his technologists made a big mistake. The Crystal Tower had the capacity to hold all the energy that was flowing down upon the Earth, but the Earth itself could not handle it. Thus the Earth under the building began to crumble and the tower sank. Amon did not want this to end, however, and invoked a powerful spell to stop the flow of time, leaving the inside of the tower in a dormant state along with its denizens. Most of the population was gone from the calamity, but one of the royal bloodlines of Xande survived the danger. She in her right mind thought of a way to bring this curse to an end, by entrusting her bloodline to another by ways of biotechnology. Her name was Princess Selena. Transfusing her royal blood into others, these trusted allies would be identified in the Makote Seeker of the Sun G tribe, and after hundreds of years, the Crystal Tower returns after the most recent umbral calamity. That is when a group of scholars and adventurers came together to finally stop the legacy of Xande, with the help of 2 clones, Uni and Doga. The rest I'm sure many of you have already experienced, but just in case, you should definitely play the Crystal Tower Saga in 14. Those dungeons are the 24-man raid tiered Labyrinth of the Ancient, Circus Tower, and World of Darkness. Also, throughout this entire video I wasn't sure if it was Circus Tower or anything else. It does sound like Circus Tower, but I don't care how it's pronounced at this point, so yeah, moving on. This raid tier is also a huge reference to the last 3 dungeons you explored in Final Fantasy III, and it's just plain amazing how all 3 dungeons are designed with encompassing music, making it a joy to run through. Nowadays it's not so hard, but back in the day it was pretty fun. The Labyrinth, the Tower, World of Darkness, for some reason people still die in it, and I'm not really too sure how that is. But that's it, that's the Allagan Empire. Next, we'll continue on into the Forgotten Era. Since it's, forgotten, we'll probably go past that. See you in the next chapter.